Inflation, meaning, refers to the rise in the price of most goods and services of daily or common use. Food, clothing, housing, recreation, transport, consumer staples are the examples of daily or common use. It means that there is an increase in the cost of living that causes lower purchasing power. It is a situation when there is too much money chasing too few goods. How to measure inflation? First, Consumer Price Index. Second, also known as the Cost of Living Index. Third, measure change in the average price of consumer goods and services. Other than inflation, we have deflation, which is a decrease in general price level of goods and services. Types of inflation. First, demandful inflation. When the number of people who want a good or service increases and the supply isn't increasing at the same time rate. Second, cost push inflation. When the cost of maintaining a business rises and then customers have to pay more to help the business sustain itself. Rising cost of material, higher wages, higher land rent. Number 3, monetary inflation. When money supply increases through the expansionary fiscal policy or expansionary monetary policy. Inflation rate in Malaysia averaged 3.44% from 1973 until 2020, reaching an all-time high of 23.90% in March of 1974 and a record low of 2.90% in April of 2020. The effects of inflation in Malaysia. Negative effect may due to decrease in the real value of money and other monetary items over time. Second, positive effect can include a mitigation of economic recessions and debt relief by reducing the real level of debt. Number 3, high rates of inflation and hyperinflation can be caused by an excessive growth of the money supply. Lastly, low or moderate inflation may be attributed to fluctuation in real demands for goods and services or changes in available supplies such as during scarcities as well as the growth in the money supply. How to overcome inflation in Malaysia? First, government action to face the inflation. Government is applying various strategies to face the inflation that barged in Malaysia recently. Bank Negara Malaysia as a central bank acts as a government agent controls the economy by implementing several policies to the commercial bank and the financial institution. They also give many advice to the public on how to help the government to control the inflation. Monetary policies is a policy used to manipulate the money supply for maintaining the stability in the market. Instruments used in monetary policy such as open market operation, statutory reserve requirement, discount rate, and also moral suasion. Fiscal policies. This policy dealt with government expenditures and taxes. When inflation occurs, the government will use surplus budget policies by increasing taxes and reducing government spending. This implementation will lead to lower income to the public and reduce the purchasing power. Or physical control. Government has implemented direct or physical control to face the inflation. The first physical control used in an anti-hoarding campaign. KPDN HEP has forced out their officers to take action for those retailers and traders hoarding the goods of inflation. Those who are hiding goods will be compounded and goods will be snatched.
Recession. What is recession? Recession is a period of decline in general economic activity, typically defined when an economy experiences a decrease in its gross domestic product for 2 consecutive quarters. Other recession indicators include rising employment, falling retail sales, slow manufacturing growth, and a decline in real personal income. In a recession, you may feel this compounding effect a few different ways. Jobless claims go up, spending habits change, sales slow down, and economic opportunities down dive. During this pandemic, Malaysia has experienced a recession and many people have no job because of this pandemic. There are 3 effects of recession in Malaysia. First, increased unemployment rate. During a recession, businesses tend to see less demand as well as reduced output, which lead to the next logical step of cutting back on labor. Second, reduced wage growth. Businesses will be slow to hire as discussed above. Employer will also have less room to offer their workers higher wage or salary increase when a recession is ongoing. Next, the last effect of recession in Malaysia is issue with debt servicing. With workers facing unemployment, pay cuts and unpaid leave, some individuals will find themselves in a difficulty when it's come to paying off their existing debt, be it housing, car and personal financing, or even credit card bill. How to survive or what can you do during this COVID-19 recession? First, improving your employability and upskilling. Self-help, post on social media, learn a new skill, sharpen your existing skill. Next, think twice about major life decisions. From wedding, having kids, buying a car, buying a house, and any type of impulse purchasing. A big financial burden. Third, scrutinize the number down to the last cent. Going back to the basics, such as reducing unnecessary expenses, spending only for needs instead of wants, paying yourself first, and saving before spending will be helpful.
Unemployment. What is unemployment? Unemployment occurs when a person who is actively searching for employment is unable to find work. It is those people in the workforce or pool of people who are available for work that does not have an appropriate job. There are 6 types of unemployment. First, classical unemployment. It is also called the real wage unemployment. Arise when trade unions drive wages in excess of the market clearing levels, resulting in a fall in demand for labor. Second is frictional unemployment. It refers to workers who are in between jobs. Occurs when workers lost their current job and are in the process of finding another one. It includes new entrants such as school leavers, fresh graduates, and re-entrants such as. Third is seasonal unemployment. This occurs when certain products cannot be produced during a certain season. Many workers are temporarily laid off on a short-term basis during certain times of the year. Fourth is structural unemployment. Structural unemployment is caused by a mismatch in the demographics of workers and the types of job available. Fifth is technological unemployment. Arise from labor-saving techniques of production or new technology which requires workers to have a different set of skills. It also occurs when developments in technology and working practice cause some workers to lose their jobs. Cyclical unemployment is a type of unemployment which is related to the cyclical trends in the industry or the business cycle. Current Malaysia unemployment rate is 3.32%. The number of local workers who have lost their jobs in Singapore is increasing. According to the Labour Attaché, the Malaysian Energy Commission in Singapore, the total number of Malaysian workers terminated for the period of January to July 2020 is 15,666. The difficulty of graduates getting job opportunities. The 2019 Graduate Tracking Report found out that 41,161 graduates found it difficult to get a job after 6 months of graduation. The WSP allocation is still insufficient for the long term. The rate of WSP in Malaysia is too small, about 20% of the monthly salary compared to WSP in Singapore. The effects of unemployment on social issues. First, the imbalance of social status among the populations or the increase of vice activities. Second, Malaysia is not excluded from getting involved and dealing with crime offence issues every day. Third, unemployment can cause a humongous social and economic cost to a country's budget. Fourth, every problem that arises will have its consequence. Lastly, unemployment could affect the lifestyle of the society as this is strongly related to stress management.
How to reduce unemployment in Malaysia? First, close the gap of labor supply and demand. The government needs to urgently solve the problem of mismatch of supply and demand of labor force and skills. There should be aggressive reskilling program to help reskill unemployed graduates. Second, Improve your soft skill and transferable skill to narrow the skill gap of graduates in terms of technical and soft skill deficiencies. Tertiary institutions need to equip graduates with more transferable skills. Third, incentive young entrepreneurship. Young must be empowered to venture into entrepreneurship. This generation of Malaysians has a much wider worldview as well as greater creativity and potential to think outside of the box than previous generation. Plus, better institution. Nation needs to strong institution to command market confidence for private sector development. It should be an institutionalized accountability structure and ensure that whatever plan we have. How to reduce unemployment in Malaysia? First, close the gap of labour supply and demand. The government needs to urgently solve the problem of the mismatch of supply and demand of labour force and skills. There should be aggressive reskilling program to help reskill unemployed graduates. Second, improve your soft skill and transferable skill to narrow the skill gaps of graduates in terms of technical and soft skill deficiencies. Tertiary institutions to equip graduates more transferable skills. Next, incentive young entrepreneurship. Youth must be empowered to venture into entrepreneurship. This generation of Malaysians has a much wider worldview as well as greater creativity and potential to think outside of the box than previous generation. Last, better institution. Malaysia needs strong institution to command market confidence for private sector development. It should be an institutionalized accountability structure to ensure that whatever plan we have.
Malaysia's inflation, as measured by the Consumer Price Index (CPI), is projected to normalize at 2.5% in 2021, after the domestic economy slipped into deflation as a result of the COVID-19 outbreak in 2020, according to the Ministry of Finance (MOF) Economic Report 2020-21. Ministry of Finances said the inflation forecast in 2021 is in line with better economic prospects in higher crude oil prices expected. The CPI dropped by 1% during the first 8 months of 2020, and the trend is expected to continue for the rest of the year, indicating the downward pressure on prices due to weaker consumer spending. Next, conclusion for recession. Malaysia's economy fell into recession as the Southeast Asian countries' GDP plunged 16.5% quarter-over-quarter in the 3 months to June amid the coronavirus pandemic. The slump in seasonally adjusted real GDP followed a 2.0% decline in the prior 3-month period, according to the Bank Negara Malaysia, which downgraded its economic outlook for the year. A technical recession is defined as 2 straight quarters of negative GDP growth. The central bank said the economy faced supply and demand shocks from weak external demand conditions and measures to contain the spread of the coronavirus in the second quarter. Conclusion for unemployment. The overall unemployment rate in Malaysia has hovered between 2.9% to 3.4% over the last 26 years from 4.5% in 1990. The unemployment rate had been much higher in the 1980s, reaching a height of 8.3% in 1986. It is noteworthy that the unemployment rate has stayed low and relatively stable even as the structure of the economy experienced major adjustment. This stable unemployment rate over this prolonged period has led to suggestion that perhaps Malaysia has achieved the status of full employment.